should get the red wine out of the screen, shouldn't we?
Oh, probably. And here we are again live, coming to you from the Startup Precinct in Brisbane. The pop-up entrepreneur event's just completed, and the room's full of people making a lot of noise. I found this guy, actually Chris found this guy and dragged him over for a chat, Tony Wheeler. So Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. So I guess a long and potted history with tech startups. Been involved in the startup ecosystem in Queensland for about 20 years. Have a consulting firm that's consulted to this sector. Also co-founder and managing director of a tech startup that is going through some interesting changes at the moment. And also a mentor at River City Labs here at the Precinct.
Okay, you do mentoring. Well, that's very good to hear. Right, okay. And so how does the mentoring at the Precinct with River City work? Do you get around to all of them, or do you work? What's the structure like?
I guess it varies from mentor to mentor. Myself, I tend to do most of the startup weekends and things like Unearthed and so forth. I've just been approached by a couple of the local companies here to actually spend a bit more time with them. So that should be pretty exciting. So having the Precinct opening now changes the dynamic a lot. So essentially, it's a really good time to be involved.
And you mentioned you've been involved in a lot of startups. What is particular startups around particular technologies or software?
Most of it's actually software related, but given a management consulting background, it's more general strategy advice, so it can be pretty much any. So whether it's telehealth, biotech, agribusiness, software. So yeah, sort of work with a few.
So I do a bit of mentoring myself. So I'm happy to meet another mentor because we're few and far between. I find it's maybe not so much in Brisbane now, but when you go over the States and that, I mean, there's mentors everywhere, right? And the guys that made it the first time round, and the people that have done well stay in the system and give back into the system. We don't tend to have the culture of doing that here.
Yeah, it's something I know Steve Baxter is trying to push very strongly here about giving back to the community. And Adrian from Tech One tonight actually mentioned about the philosophy of give first. As you say, there's an issue here, and I think it's about population density and startup density. As you say, in America, they've got so many more companies that have started, the population is so much bigger, there's a bigger pool to choose from. I guess in Australia we have a much smaller and less mature ecosystem, but also we've got less success stories. And so there are a lot of mentors around who stick their hand up, but they haven't necessarily been there and done that. They haven't actually failed and done the hard yards. So I think actually seeing Adrian here tonight for the Pop-Up Entrepreneur is brilliant, and getting people like himself and other big success stories that do come out of Australia and out of Queensland that the majority of people don't know about. So we actually have some really good companies. Everyone knows about Atlassian right now. Everyone knows about Halfbrick. But there's a lot of other success stories out there, but they're very quiet. So no one knows about them. But getting those people involved would be awesome.
Well, that's part of what we're trying to do at Beach City is get the message out there and get stories out there and get people involved. And I guess, success is it can be different things to different people. And a lot of people I talk to, I say, well, what do you want out of it? And it's not necessarily they want the mansion or the private jet or whatever. They want, to be healthy. They want to live a healthy lifestyle. They want to be able to educate their kids. So it's more about, and again, that's what Beach City's about, is an entrepreneurial lifestyle. Yeah. It's a lifestyle that you can take. And it's a valid path. So we don't all have to be unicorns, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also becomes very much more relevant when graduates these days are trying to say, which career path am I going down, what job am I going to go for? It's no longer about that. You actually can't do that anymore. So we often talk to career people and say, it's not about saying, what jobs are you preparing your students for? It's actually saying, what jobs are you preparing your students to create in the future? So it is about a portfolio lifestyle, it is about flexibility, it is about freedom. The big corporates are dying all over the place. So being an entrepreneur no longer is just a synonym for being unemployed. It actually is a valid career path. It is a valid way of actually moving forward. And we've got to encourage more people to do it.
Oh, well, absolutely. And that's exactly the motivation for us creating Beach City, because, I spent the first 10 years of my life, I still get asked, when am I going to get a real job? And The answer's never.
Yeah, I guess I haven't worked in the corporate sector for 25 years, and it's like, I don't think I'd ever do it again. But it's a different culture, it's a different way of being, it's a different way of thinking. It's a hell of a lot tougher. You don't have steady paychecks, you don't know where the next income is coming from. It's a different lifestyle, but it's actually something that youth of today are going to be facing more and more of, because the job security the previous generations have lived with just isn't going to be there. So people have to get entrepreneurial, they have to get sales orientated, and they have to be flexible and resilient and basically say, I'm actually going to do something different, because the old models, what we did, what I did, what my parents did, is no longer relevant. The world is changing too rapidly.
Yeah, I think, it comes down to critical thinking, really. For me, that's what it boils down to, is the skill of being able to critically think and solve complex problems.
Yeah, and you say it's critical thinking, critical examining what is actually going on in the world, and actually challenging our base assumptions about saying, right, well, my assumption is I'm just going to study this degree and go and do this. It's like, no longer relevant. So how do you critically examine the big trends? How do you critically examine what is going on in the world? And as Adrian said tonight, it's like being an entrepreneur is not about following the pack. It's actually about predicting the future. Your clients don't necessarily know what they want or what they're going to need in 5 years. So you've got to have the guts to get out there and say, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're predicting, this is what we want to create, and you'll thank us in 5 years' time for going down this path.
I think Steve Jobs famously said that focus groups were a waste of time because people don't actually know what they want until you show it to them.
Absolutely. It's like everyone keeps saying, it's like if you asked everyone 20 years ago what was on their wish list, it wouldn't have been mobile phones and smart tech and wearable tech and everything else. It didn't exist. People had no idea that's what they wanted. Now everyone wants it. So you've got to create the future.
Yeah. And I think another great quote that I loved was Henry Ford. If he had have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Yeah, exactly. I also love when Henry Ford was put on trial in America, and they turned around and they asked him all these questions to find out how intelligent he was and try and prove that he was nuts. And he turned around and he said, I don't use my brain to store history, I use my brain to create the future.
Beautiful. On that note, one final question, two-part. Favourite beach in the world and favourite city in the world?
Wow. Okay, wasn't expecting them. Favourite city in the world? Ironically, in some way, shape, actually, I was going to say Brisbane. I think Brisbane is an awesome city.
Yeah.
I also think Tokyo is amazing.
Okay.
Tokyo has just got an amazing culture, such amazing people. Favourite beach? Wow. I would have to say I'm getting a local flavour here. I reckon Lennox Head.
Lennox Head, that's a pretty popular one, I've got to say.
Yeah.
So, Tony, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.